Namaste and good morning to all of you. Let's start our class with some prayers. Om Guru Brahma Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhuvah Swaha Tatsavitra Varenayam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. अस्तो मा सद्गम्य तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गम्य मृत्युर्मा अमृतं गम्य ओम सहना भवतु सहना भुनक्तु सवीर्यं कर्वावहि तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहि ओम शांति 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 So Vivekachudamani, verse number 457. And in these verses, Adi Shankaracharya is telling us about the saintly people, self-realized person, the Pràrabdha of that saintly person. So let's look at this verse 457. Natasya mithya artham samarthan ichha na sangrehe tat jagtoh api drishtaha tatra anuvartvriti yadi chen mrisharthe na nidriya mukt itishyate na means not tasya for him. Him means that saintly person, awakened person. Or over here, who has awakened from the dream. Mithya arthas samarantha ichha. The wish to prove the unreal objects to be real. Okay, the wish to prove unreal means the dream over here. No means not. Sangraha. Sangraha means continued maintenance. Sangraha. Tataha jagtaha, of the world, of that world. That means the dream world. Drishtaha is to be observed. So in regard to him, to be observed. Tatra means in that. Anuvriti, a sort of maintenance in that. Anuvriti. Yadi means if. Mrish arthe, unreal objects. Nidriya, na means not, nidriya, from sleep. Muktaha, free. Okay, so actually it's a na muktaha. So this na should be in front of muktaha. Na muktaha is not free yet. Iti means thus. Ishyate, declared. Dhruvam, definitely. So it's like a emphatically he is saying that. Definitely. So he does not wish to prove the unreal objects to be real. Nor is it observed that he maintains the dream world. If he still holds on to the unreal objects, he is emphatically declared to be not yet free from sleep. So he says, he's just taking our mind towards the dream world, that world where we go every night. But when we get up, we don't say that the dream world is real. The minute we get up, we know that was just a dream world. Anybody who says, no, that was real, that means a person is still sleeping, still dreaming. The same way he says, this saintly person, the realized person, has woken up from this unreal. He identifies only with the real. So just like we wake up from the dream world into the wakefulness, he has woken up from that illusory, that Maya. He sees the Brahm everywhere. So on realization, the objects are just temporary for him. They are not real. So now in the next verse, तद्वत् परेः ब्रह्मणि वर्तमानः सद् आत्मनः तिष्ठति न अन्य दीक्षते स्मृति यथा स्वपन विलोकितः अर्थः तथा विधा प्राशन मोच नादौ तद्वत्. Tadvad means so also, like a so too. Pare brahmanihi vartamanaha. Awakened person who remains identified with the eternal reality. So that means forever absorbed in that Brahm. Forever absorbed. Sada means always. Atmanaha in the form of the true self. Sada Atmanaha. Tishtati remains. So that means always remain like that. Na anye ikshate. He does not perceive anything else. Samriti remembers, like after seeing something, when you remember it, that is a samriti. Yatha means just as. Swapan avilokitarthe, in respect of the object in the dreams. Okay, any earth in the swapan. Tatha means in that way. Vida, the wise one, the realized one. Prashan mochan adau, in respect of the day-to-day acts of eating, releasing, etc. Okay, it's like a mochan means expulsion, rejecting. Okay, and prashan means eating. See, like a anprashan. You know, there's a sanskar which we do when we feed the solid food to the baby first time. The name of that sanskar is anprashan. Prashan means eating, and mochan means expulsion, rejecting. So tatha vidha prashan mochan adau. Adau means etc. So too, the man who remains identified with the eternal reality does not perceive anything else. Just as one remembers having seen the objects in the dream, the realized person remembers his day-to-day acts of eating, etc. So all those things he will do it without getting absorbed into it, because his mind is totally absorbed into the Brahm, the reality. So this person is living in a higher plane of consciousness, living in the world, but mind is in the Brahm. Because he has realized that everything is Brahma. This is the only reality. See, just like we know from our viewpoint, when we are in a wakeful state, that is a reality for us. Dream state is not a reality. Even though we go through the dreams, but we can just keep the dreams out of our mind when we are fully awakened. And this person, the wise person, the realized person, knows that reality is only God. It's only God and God and God. Everything else is temporary. So he sees the temporary, but that doesn't mean he identifies himself with the temporary. So in my waking state, I do not believe in any dream world. So wise person has risen into that state of consciousness where there's only the reality, not the temporariness, really matters to him. But even if you, we have a memory of the dream here and there, but we remember it as non-existent. That's why we say it was just a dream. It has no consequence to us. The same way the realized person sees all this, but keeps it where it belongs, outside. Outside. Does not get affected by it. So that's why it said that the man of realization goes to the world. His activities like eating, breathing, sleeping, rejecting, they are taking place. That's why we see a realized person looks like us, dresses up like us, eats like us, works like us. But there's something is different. Something is different in that person. Okay? So that is called a man of perfection. He goes through the activities of maintaining the body and doing the outside duties also, taking care of the families, taking care of everything else in life, but little differently than us. We get absorbed into it. It does not. So because in all these verses, he's trying to explain to us this is a saintly person, this realized person. Let's look at next one. Karmana nirmito deha prarabdam tasye kalpyatam nanader atmanoho yuktam na evatmaha karam nirmitaha. Karmana. Over here, karmana means the prarabdha karam. By the prarabdha karam. And we are all familiar with this term. Prarabdha karam, sanchit karam, kriyaman karam. Prarabdha karam is from the storehouse, from the sanchit karam, which we brought with us in this particular lifetime. Prarabdha karam. Okay. So nirmito has been fashioned, created, nirmit, deha, the body, prarabdham, the prarabdha, tasya, in respect to that, tasya normally means his, so in respect to that, kalpyatam, let it be accepted. Okay. Nana means many. Nana. Atmanoho, in respect of the self. Atmanaha. Yuktaha. Yukta means it's like a over here. See, yukta means normally united. So over here it's like a with in relation to the prarabdha. So to attribute to prarabdha. Na means not, ev means verily, atmaha, the soul. Karam nirmataha, the result of any earlier actions. Karam nirmata. So the body has been fashioned by prarabdha. So what are we talking about? The body of that self-realized person. So the body has been fashioned by prarabdha. So one accepts that relates to the body. But it is not reasonable to attribute it to the self. Atma is never the result of any earlier work. It is not a karma nirmit. So body is because of the actions, and body over here does not mean only the physical body. That means the subtle body, the causal body also, all the bodies, they are because of the prarabdha. A person who has realized this truth, is fully identified with the self. And that's how this person can disidentify from the bodies. He will not get involved anymore with these worldly objects or these emotions or the thoughts which belongs to the physical realm. Does not want to get, because in the past that person did, and because of that there is a body, because that is the prarabdha. So we all are familiar with this word prarabdha, but for this man of realization there's no prarabdha, because he doesn't even identify with the body anymore. We see the body, we can say that whether it's a male body or a female body or a tall body or a short body, we will say all that. But for that person, now it's not a matter of any question. So in this verse, clearly Shankaracharya ji is telling us that because of the old vasanas, the person got the body. But now, totally detached from the body. So body definitely stems forth from the actions of the past. Anybody who has a body, it's because of the prarabdha. Because prarabdha is a resultant of past actions. So you can say that body is the product of the prarabdha. So prarabdha belongs to the body only. These three bodies. Prarabdha does not belong to the Atma. This is, he is trying to clarify. So there's no prarabdha to the Atma. Atma is just part of Paramatma. It's part of God. So that's why he says very clearly that prarabdha is not for the man of realization. So that means there's no prarabdha for the self, for the soul. Self is not created. It is. It was never created. It is not created because of the past actions. The self was, is, and shall ever be. And that's what we learned in Bhagavad Gita. If you remember in the second chapter, Sankhya Yoga chapter, what did Lord Krishna say? Ajo nitya shashvato ayapurano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. Unborn, eternal, permanent, the most ancient. It cannot be killed when the body is killed. This is what the Atma is. And even in Kathopanishad, we learned the same thing. Same idea. Atma is Anadi, which is beginningless. Atma is Ananta, endless. So this prarabdha can be only in pertaining to the body, physical body. Physical body takes birth and the physical body dies. But eternal substratum, there is no birth or any death. Okay, so this is what he's trying to tell, and now he's almost quoting the Kathopanishad in the next verse. So again, this is the large-heartedness of great rishis, avatars. They never say that take my word for it. They say, hey, the scriptures are saying this. The primary scriptures are saying the same thing. So that's why they keep on adding the scriptural passages in these great books also. Aja nitya shashvat iti brute shrutir modvak tadatmanaha tishtataho asye kutaha prarabdha kalpanaha. Aja, aja means birthless. So the Atma is birthless. Nitya, eternal. Shashvat, undecaying. Iti means thus. Brute says, Shruti, the primary scriptures, the Vedas. Amogh Vak, infallible declaration. Amog. The words which are infallible. Tad Atmanaha, identified as that self alone. Self means that birthless alone. Tishtata, when remains. Asya, for this, the realized one. Kutaha, how can? So he is asking us to ask a question to ourselves. How can? Prarabdha kalpanaha, attributing to Prarabdha be there. So kalpana means imagine. How can you even imagine that in your wildest dream? The Atma is worthless, eternal and undecaying. Ajaha nitya shashvataha. Such is the absolute declaration of Shruti. Amog Vak means absolute. There is no question about it. Shruti keeps on declaring it. How can Prarabdha be attributed to him who lives ever identified with that? That means with the Atma. So in the previous verse, he gave us a very logical reasoning why the Atma has no Prarabdha. Here he is giving us a supporting passage or part of the passage, quoting the scriptures. So logically also it doesn't make sense, and scripturally the words of the wise people, he says, they said the same thing. So it's almost like he is arriving at the conclusion with his reasoning and supporting it with the Shrutis also. So rishis of the past, they came up with this rational conclusion. Very logically they arrived supporting this. This is called a Shruti Praman. That is a term used by the scholars or by the rishis also, Shruti Praman, that authority of the scriptures. Okay? So this particular Aja, Nitya, Shashvata, these three words, they are quoted from Kath Upanishad. If you have that Upanishad, you can look at it in chapter 1, subsection 2, number 18. So 1 to 18, you will see this Ajaha, Nityaha, Shashvataha. The reason I'm giving you that because you have these Upanishads with you. So birthless, eternal, changeless is the nature of the self, says the Upanishad. And words of the scriptures are Amog Vak. Vak means the word, and Amog means infallible. Let's look at next verse. Prarabdham siddhyati tada yada de atmana sthiti de atma bhavo nevishtaha prarabdham tyajat mataha. Again, Prarabdha, you already know. Siddhyati means gets accepted. That means it's meaningful. Siddhyati. Tada means so long. Yada means as long. Tada yada. Deha atmanaha sthiti. One who lives identified with one's body. So identification with the body. Deha atmana sthiti. Deha atma bhavaha. Identification with the body. Na eva, not at all, ishtaha, accepted by anyone. Prarabdham, that is a prarabdha work. Tyajatam, should be rejected or abandoned. Ataha, ataha means hence. So that means in the case of the realized person, only as long as one lives identified with one's body can one accept prarabdha actions, prarabdha work. So identification with this body, that means I am this body. I am this physical body, or maybe little subtler than that, I am my mind. I am my intellect. So as long as one lives identified with one's body, can one accept prarabdha work. But no one accepts that a man of realization ever identifies himself with his body. Okay, so this is like a saying of the scriptures that when you don't identify with the false, you become realized. So, but no one accepts that a man of realization ever identifies himself with his body. Hence, in his case, prarabdha world should be rejected. So he is quoting the scriptural truth here, like a continuation of the previous verse. Because the body is a product of past actions, sure, it continues to enjoy and suffer its fruits as long as we identify with the body. But a man of perfection has ended this misconception, no longer identifies with this temporary. He knows that the physical body or its suffering and its joys will not affect him. So that's why Shankaracharya is concluding here and almost commanding us that give up the concept of all prarabdha working in the case of a man of perfection. This is what he's telling us. Next verse. Shrirasya api prarabdha kalpanaha bhrantirev hi adhyastasya kutaha satvam satyasya kutoh jane ajatasya kuto nasha prarabdham sataha kutaha. Shrirasya, with respect to the body, api, even prarabdha kalpanaha, to attribute prarabdha, he means indeed bhranti, illusion. Ev means alone. Kutaha, how? That how can it be? Sattvam, the real or any existence, asatasya, for a superimposition, like an unreal. Kutaha, how can there be? Jani, Jani means the birth or have a birth. Ajatasya, kutoho nashaha. Ajatasya means for the never born. Ajat. Kutaha means how can be. Nashaha, the death or a destruction. Prarabdham, prarabdha karma, asataha, unreal. Again, kuta means how can be. Okay. To attribute prarabdha even to the body is decidedly an illusion. How can a superimposition have any existence? How can the unreal have a birth? And that which is never born, how can it die? So how can prarabdha function for something unreal? So over here, he is telling us that not only can there be no prarabdha for the self, but for a man of perfection, even his body can have no prarabdha. This is the argument he's making, that in his absolute state of realization, he does not perceive the body. He does not recognize the existence of the body. Others may, and they do, but this person does not. Because when you really contemplate deeply on this, you will see the truth behind these statements. That you will not accept that there is a prarabdha even for the physical body for a realized person. See, just like earlier, he gave us the example of a snake and a rope. There was really no snake, it was only a rope. So that superimposition did not even exist. So it's like out of delusion, we think that he got a body out of prarabdha, but actually there is none. All these three bodies. So birth and death of the body are both superimposition on the self. So he is kind of summing up his argument. He can say, how can there be prarabdha for the unreal? If it's unreal, how can there be prarabdha? Which is naturally unborn. That means it is non-existent. So he is summarizing with this, that he says that prarabdha cannot be either for the self or for the body, which is the non-self. It can be only in the imagination of the deluded person's mind. For a realized person, there is none. It's a pretty deep thought. Our average mind cannot really think it through because we look at everything from the physical point of view. But this philosophy says this physical is just an illusion. It's a superimposition. And that's what adhyas word means in this verse, the superimposition. Let's look at next one. Jnanen agyan karyasya smulasya layo yadi tishthetem katham deh iti shanka vatoh jadana samadhatu bahe drishtya prarabdham vadati shruti. Jnanen, by knowledge. Agyan karyasya, whatever is the result of ignorance or the effects of the ignorance. Samulasya, root and all, that means complete. Laya, laya means destruction. Laya. Okay. And yadi means if. So if there is a complete destruction. So sumulasya layo yadi tishtati, it remains. I am this. Katham, how does? Deha, body. Iti means thus. That really means considering those with these kind of questions. Iti. Shankavat. Who entertains such doubts? Sanshya. Jadan. Jadan samadhatu. Jadan means ignorant people, fools. Samadhatu means to reply or to answer. To answer is ignorant people. Bahe drishtyaha, from a relative standpoint. Bahe drishtya, like an external sight. Prarabdham. Vadati says, Shruti, the scriptures. He says if the effects of ignorance are destroyed, root and all. So the avidya has to be destroyed. And avidya is what? Avidya is not knowing the truth, not knowing the eternal. That is avidya. So if the effects of ignorance are destroyed, root and all, by knowledge, how does the body continue to live? Shruti, from a relative standpoint, says the work of Pràrabdha for those fools who entertain such doubts. So he is calling people who has doubts fools. That means there is not enough knowledge yet. That's why we are told to get knowledge from a guru, so that we can destroy the ignorance, root and all. So in this verse, Shankaracharya ji is trying to explain why the Upanishads, they keep on discussing the great concept of Pràrabdha, working upon the bodies. So he is telling us it is from a relative standpoint, because everybody is not realized. There are people, most of the people, they are still, they have the ignorance in them. And he calling us Jadan. So he says from the relative point of view, there is a Pràrabdha. In the absolute point of view, for a realized person, there is no Pràrabdha at all. Because most of us, we see only the bodies. We do suffer through the bodies. We enjoy through the bodies also, because only theoretically we know we are the Atma. So from the relative point of view, he says, there could be a Pràrabdha. Just think about that. Yeah, we have a Pràrabdha, but keep on doing the sadhana. Then ultimately, all the doubts will be removed. And the doubts will be removed only when we have a realization, when we have experience. So Upanishads, they compromise a little when they accept the concept of Pràrabdha for the man of realization. When they say no, because of the Pràrabdha, the saintly person also got the body. But actually there's no body for that person. Okay, it is only to help the ignorant people, the people who are still living in the realm of polarity. This is called a relative aspect, or vyavhar ritya. From the absolute point of view, there's no Pràrabdha for the perfected person, because he's one with the Brahman. Let's do one more, and then we'll have some discussion, because I'm sure you have some questions. Na tu deh adi satyatva bodhanaye vipashchitam yata shruter abhipraya parmarathek gocharaha. Tu means, so normally it means tu means but over here, in contrast to the miscontentious, tu, no means not at all. Dehe adi satyatva bodhanaye, for proving the reality of the body, etc. Dehe adi satyatva, it's like a reality, truthfulness. Bodhanaye. Vipashchitam. Vipashchitam means the learned, to teach the learned. Yataha, because Shrute Abhipraya, the heart of the Shruti, that means the scriptures which contain the Upanishads, they take us towards the absolute. Parmarath ek gocharaha, without exception, striving to point out the one supreme reality. So gochar means going somewhere. Where are you going? Towards that one. Paramarth ek, paramarth ek. The idea of Pràrabdha has been expounded by the Upanishads. not for proving the reality of the body, etc., for the man of realization, because the Upanishads are without exception striving to point out the one supreme reality. That is the topic for the Upanishads. There's a one God, which is Brahm, supreme reality. All the Upanishads take us towards that supreme goal. So Shankaracharya ji is concluding his discussion, and he is saying that this perceivers of the polarity, sometimes they quote the Upanishads and they sanction the Pràrabdha theory. They only are talking in a relative sense from the bodily consciousness, which is other than the reality which all the Upanishads are taking us. Because these books are for, these scriptures are for a person who has reached, also a person who is still going also. So he says the Upanishads are condensing all that knowledge for us. They are playing out the Pràrabdha theory also. That's how they are gracing us. That's how they are telling us. But we got to remember the goal is the total vision of the absolute one. Paramartha ek gochara. So that students can understand by and large and not stay anxious about this. So, and now we'll see that next week. The next section in this great scripture is that there's no polarity. It's just further taking us towards the next level. So up to here, it was a description of the realized person, a perfected one. So let's stop it here and have some discussion. Om Purnamada Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnase Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.